Previously on Yu-Gi-Oh!
It's been a journey. Well, that makes it sound more grandiose than it is, but it was definitely a journey.
The journey's just getting started.
The journey is just
the
begun.
show's. This is where the show
Show's
really
begun.
starts. Now that I think about it, I don't think it's going to be winter because it's probably going to be 2-core. It better be 2-core. I'll be
Well,
really
yeah,
annoyed if
that's
it's not.
we confirmed winter.
The 2020 date worries me.
I actually think the way they've adapted the first arc of the anime without so many mind games and internal thoughts will translate better to the content that comes later on than the manga did. I do think in a weird way, because people had such high expectations for this first season compared to the first arc. I think they were let down. I think they'll be impressed, if not content, with the second and third arc presentation because they're probably not expecting that much anyway.
I kind of think it's more likely that manga readers will be the ones kind of more enthusiastic about it in general.
Well, I've seen a bunch of people.
You'll see less manga reader complaints probably.
Promised Neverland is the minions of anime.
So back to the Promised Neverland. This is where the podcast really begins.
We're starting the podcast now, guys. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Promised Neverweekly Season 2. I know you guys have been anticipating this. We've gotten all one of the questions asking, where is the Promised Neverweekly Season 2? But we have finally showed up. We are also here to send our condolences to the Promised Neverland Season 2. So we appreciate you all. We're gathered here today to lay to rest this tragedy of Season 2. Of course, I'm Shocking 807, and I got one of the OG crew members for the Promised Neverweekly crew. Smurf, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to be here today and be the defender of Season 2. Not that I liked it, but I'm defending it, I suppose.
We wouldn't have it any other way. It's like, I don't like it, but I will defend it.
I don't like it, but I hate it less than everybody else.
Yeah, so by default, you are the shill. So we appreciate your sacrifices. We also have Sinrus, who is the latest Promised Neverweekly expert. Promised Neverland. I'm still stuck on Promised Neverland Weekly. They are the Promised Neverweekly expert, and they will keep me and Smurf from getting too caught up in our nostalgia and keep us grounded, I believe.
Yeah, I'm coming at it with a fresh eye. I picked up the manga just while Season 2 was airing. So
you have the most unique perspective.
Yeah, I guess I do. Yeah. I also probably have the freshest memory of what was supposed to happen. So that will be my role here, I think.
That's the one thing that I was thinking is I probably should I feel like I don't have perfect memory of what happened, but I feel like I remember well enough that it'll refresh as we go.
Yeah, it's not too complicated.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I kind of thought I did too, and then they got to one part in Season 2, and I was like, I think this happened in the manga, and I totally forgot about it. So, I mean, my memory will be put to the test, so I appreciate you guys. Yeah, but let's jump into it. So, you guys might know us as the weekly host of the Promised Neverweekly, where we went over the Promised Neverland back in 2019, 5 years ago. At least it felt like 5 years ago. Because as far as I'm concerned, 2020 took up 5 years. So that was 5 years ago in my mind, even though it is now 2021. But so we did a weekly series on the Promised Neverland because at the time, Smurf, Jack, and I, we were all, mega fans, and I thought it would be pretty fun, and it was cool to get people to come on each week and give us their take. We were all super invested in the series, and I think at the time we were really invested in the anime adaptation, and we thought they did a pretty good job. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, those live streams were some of the most fun I think we've ever had on this podcast.
Yeah, I agree. I think
we
was
had
also
all the cannibal film memes and everything. It was a good time.
Yeah, we got a lot of good memes that have carried on throughout the ages. A lot of good discussions, a lot of fun times, and it was cool to be reacting to something in real time because a lot of times we're reacting to things after the fact. So this was real time discussions. We got a good sense of how people felt and how they were taking the adaptation for one of the biggest Weekly Shonen Jump series at the time. So that was cool. If you haven't heard it and you're interested, please go check it out. I think we have a playlist on our channel. Go check it out. It's a lot of fun. But we were always kind of asked, were we going to do the Promised Neverweekly Season 2? Because they had confirmed a sequel right at the end of the first season. And I think we were all like under the intention that like, yeah, we had fun with this. Let's give it a shot if it would be fun. Then
I think we were saved by the fact that Attack on Titan aired the same season because we wanted to do the Attack on Titan one instead. And if we hadn't been doing that, then we would have committed to Neverweekly Season 2 and it would have been a disaster.
Yeah, or it could have been a great disaster.
I think it would have been much more entertaining.
Yeah, well, it could have gone either way, for better or worse. But in the process, I think we also had, in between those 2 points, we had 2020, a 5-year period, where everyone knows we had like COVID, so we got a lot of delays. But we also had the Promised Neverland manga ended in Smurf. You had the dates down, and I already forgot.
In June of 2020.
June of 2020, the Promised Neverland manga ended. Then the Promised Neverland Season 2 was supposed to come out in September or October.
October, yeah.
October, yeah, because that's when the fall season starts. And that got delayed because of COVID. So it started. When did this whole season happen?
It was winter.
January. Oh, it was this year. It's still 5 years.
Yes, it was literally last season.
It was literally last season. I'm like, yo, this 2020, it just never ends. So
to be fair, it was only 11 episodes, so it ended a couple weeks before everything else. So it feels like it was longer ago.
Forever ago, yeah.
Yeah, feels like never happened. Yeah. So then it aired in January 2021, which was this year. So it got pushed back a bit. And the timing of it just kind of felt so weird because it was almost like a good half a year since the manga ended. And that's not normally how a lot of the Weekly Shonen Jump adaptations happen, even with second seasons. But,
no, the only other one that I can think of that did something similar was Shokugeki Season 5 came out a decent while after the manga ended.
Yeah, and I feel like at that point, that almost just felt like obligatory. Like, they just kept coming out with Shokugeki, even though...
even long past the point where anybody still wanted it.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird one where they just kept, like... they drained that for all it was worth, which, I mean, I'm sure some people liked it, so all's fair, whatever. But it is just kind of weird timing for such a short series to have, like, kind of a delay in between that. And what's interesting enough is... the Promised Neverland sales have, like, never really dropped, even when some people had some issues with the last arc of the manga. Like, the sales have always been really consistent, and I think those have maintained even with Season 2. So I will just take a shot in the dark and say that the reputation of the series hasn't really been changed that much in Japan, or challenged, so to speak. So I'm gonna assume that's what's going on, but it was such a weird time. And then they confirmed that, like, Promised Neverland Season 2 was going to be 11 episodes, and we all kind of went into it with the same expectations that certain content would be covered, and as soon as we got to episode 3, we realized they had bamboozled us.
I remember on the Seasonal Impressions episode, we were like, yeah, Season 2 is off to a pretty good start. Like, there are a couple small changes, but everything's seeming pretty fine. And then literally the next day the episode came out where they cut out Yugo.
Yeah.
And from there was all downhill.
I remember my friend Joey sent me this shot of it, and he's like, this is where Hugo is sitting. Because it's like the one specific shot of them opening up the door into the room where he's sitting, and they just have everything unchanged except his presence. And
the panel, it's identical to the panel in the manga, except he's just not there.
Yeah, like they just like yeeted him from existence. And they even commented stuff like, oh, it looks like some people had been living here. Like, they just make like, it's almost like a weird like Kingdom Hearts thing where people just lost their memory of him even though he existed. But like, they didn't even try to pretend that his influence was not felt. They're just like, yeah, so we're just gonna delete him, and that's what we're gonna do.
Yep.
So that's when everyone knew shit was kind of up. And then I think I saw on one of the Promised Neverland fan accounts that they're like, yeah, so Season 3 onward is anime original. And that's when everyone was like, okay, there's no Goldie Pond. There's just no Goldie Pond. And I guess for a lot of people who like hadn't read the manga or like just weren't really invested, like Goldie Pond was like the only reason to make a second season. So we were all looking forward to it. Everyone was like, okay, this is cool that we get Goldie Pond, even if we might not get a full adaptation, at least we get the best or second best arc, depending on your opinion. It's kind of like...
So I think before we get too much into the manga, I think we want to structure this in such a way so that people who haven't read the manga, we're just going to talk about season 2 on its own merits or lack thereof. Because I think a big point we want to make is that it's not bad because it didn't follow the manga. It's just
True.
It's just bad in lots of ways. And then once we're done ripping season 2 apart, we'll talk about the manga, because there are controversies with that too. And if you think you want to pick up the manga, you can cut off before we get to that point and read it yourself. Yep. Or you can just keep listening from then on. But let's just, for right now, let's just stick to the stuff that was in it rather than the stuff that wasn't.
Great call. Yeah, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Yeah, that was just kind of like when we knew that shit was up, and then they kind of confirmed that. So then we get, there was still a lot of hope that season 2 would still be good because, as you said, like some people had issues with the manga, so they're like, maybe they will just like fix some of them. Maybe they'll do something new that will, maybe elevate the series. We don't know. New doesn't inherently mean bad.
I was definitely still optimistic going into, even when, as you mentioned, like Yugo wasn't there, and everyone was like, oh, maybe they're just rearranging. Maybe he's going to show up. Maybe he's going to like return to the bunker and find them there. And I was like, that could be like that. That'd be fine. That'd be a fine change. I was also a bit optimistic because they kept saying, the original mangaka, what's their name? Kaiju Shirai, was
worked on the season,
still working it. They were writing the season 2, and I was like, okay, that's cool. The manga, one unusual thing that the manga's done in Shonen Jump is it does have chapters releasing after the end of the manga still.
Oh, interesting. That's
so
cool.
The manga ended in June. Since then, we've gotten 3 or 4 just like bonus chapters.
Cool.
And I was like, those bonus chapters I think are pretty good. Some of them are pretty good. Some I don't care about, but they're not bad.
The Isabella one is good.
The Isabella one is fantastic.
Yeah.
But then there's like, so I was like, okay, so they have some ideas for stuff that they want to just tweak, or they have extra material that enhances. So I was thinking, if they're writing season 2, maybe they can just add in some of these enhancements of theirs throughout. And I was like, that'll be fine. And then that didn't happen. And my hope was just, it's like the downward stonks meme. That was my hope.
Yeah. There goes all my hope. Yeah, because I do think, like, as you put it, Sinrus, it's like they just like kind of removed stuff. They just removed stuff, but they kept so much of the original manga content, but it just like also doesn't work. It's just so like it's
I
so
remember
weird.
Before I started reading the manga, so I didn't know what we were missing or anything. I think I'm like, I want to say it was episode 7 or 8, like once they reunite with Norman. It's when Norman tells them like go out and find Sanju and Muzika.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then I won't have to commit genocide.
Yeah.
And that was with like 4 episodes left to go.
Yeah.
And I remember saying like, okay, this should have been like episode 3.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're not going to have Yugo and Goldie Pond and all that, the shelter didn't serve any purpose. They literally showed up to the shelter, they spent like 2 episodes there, and then they ran away from it.
I don't even think they spent 2 episodes there.
At all.
Didn't it blow up the very next episode? Weren't they there for literally 1 episode?
Yeah, you might be right. It might have been literally 1 episode.
I think it was episode 3 and 4. And then they're like, bye.
Yeah.
Like, I really think that if they wanted to just like severely shorten everything, they still could have made a decent season if they had just like had the first episode cover them meeting Sanju and Mujika, the second episode time skipped when they're like squatting in the temple and they're like, we've been out for 6 months and made no progress, and then like get up, end that episode with revealing that Norman is still alive, and then third episode cover like the fact that he's made the heel turn and has his like crazy goon squad with him. And then you have plenty of time with an interesting conflict, and you can actually like make the Norman plot the main conflict of the season instead of something that's just kind of shoved in there.
Yeah. I do want to say one positive thing about season 2. This is probably the only positive thing I have to say, but it exists nonetheless. This might be due to my like terrible memory regarding the manga, which I think I read it weekly when it came out, but like it's been a bit. So I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I do appreciate the way season 2 highlighted the demon society and like the everyday people of the demon society. I think they gave that a bit more attention than the manga did, and that was one of my
That's true, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my issues with the manga, is that it felt like they kind of just like, I don't want to get into the manga talk, but I'll just say season 2 did a good job of highlighting the demon society in such a short amount of time. So they did a good enough job of making them compelling with like the old blind guy and the daughter, and then those kids who were like transforming because they didn't have meat, whatever. Like they showed the society and, you know, the rich bad. So like,
yeah,
they
the
did,
old
like,
blind guy is a totally anime original character.
Yeah, they just made him up. Same with Emma. This is actually funny though. My friend pointed out that they totally pulled a Batman versus Superman.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was just about to. So when you said Emma was also anime original, talking about the demon named Emma,
Yeah.
I rolled my eyes when you said Emma because I thought of that moment and it drives me insane.
It's so funny that you could like, you never want to go into a TV series that you like or thought you would like and be like, yeah, this reminded me of Batman versus Superman. It's like that's not a position you want to be in. And the fact that it's so on the nose with the Batman versus Superman scene is the Martha scene, for anyone who remembers. Like,
Why did you say that name?
why?
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it? And then of course they pulled the same with Emma in this.
Oh my god.
So that's when I think it's just like, once you can make that connection, you just can't come back from that.
Right.
There was no going back before, but that's the official turning point of no return. So that was just really funny. But up until then, I do give some credit for them spending some time exploring Demon Society.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I definitely agree. That is one area where this season actually like added on in a good way to what the series as a whole has to offer.
Yeah, and I'm glad to have watched this to be able to say that it didn't make up for everything else and just how bad it was at handling plot points, how I feel like it completely betrayed the idea that these characters were smart, that they had different perspectives and different ways of looking at problems. They ruined the Norman arc, which was one of my favorites, and they just did it to him in such a like not cool way. But
I wouldn't say they ruined the Norman arc. Actually, they definitely made it a lot less cool. But I think they got the gist of it pretty well.
Well, to be fair, I would say the Norman arc as a whole in the entire series was a bit underwhelming. So it's not like specifically them, but they did kind of ruin a lot of the cool moments for me. Back in the day when I was not really like, I guess I'm still not much of a manga reader, but like back when I was getting into manga as a medium, I remember when there's like the Norman section where in season 2 he's talking with the other the Lambda people, and they're like, you're not going to betray us, right? And he's like, no, I've come too far, and I'll be a devil if it means saving these people. And they have this really cool page. And then I was like, oh, I really love manga as a medium. This is just like a really cool chapter. It's cool to see him go down this far down. And they kind of fucked that up in the anime, so that just makes me kind of salty.
Yeah, it's just like him just standing there. There's nothing happening.
Yeah,
nothing
he's standing
special
at like
happening.
the edge. Yeah, he was just being like an edgelord. Like, he was just being super edgy about it. So it was kind of more of an eye roll situation than like this is pretty compelling, you know?
Mm-hmm. Now, I would say, I don't think that's a problem with season 2. I would say that's a problem with the anime adaptation as a whole for Promised Neverland.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point,
I think that a lot of the best moments of the manga do not translate. And, like, I'm not saying that the whole anime is bad. Season 1 I gave a 9. I really liked it. Yep. Although the manga material I would give a 10, so I do like it more.
Yeah.
But I still feel like there are some things, like the hype moments, I feel like are not handled well in the anime, at all. I've always had this fear with the anime ever since, and I don't mean to be like I told you so, because my worry went away. It's not like I was always holding on to this worry, but when they first announced that the director of Perfect Insider would be doing Promised Neverland, I was like, that's going to be awful. I hate that. Like, that's a terrible show. And a lot of it is because of the directing. I
remember years ago you being really upset about that.
It's like one of the worst anime I've ever seen. And I'm like, oh God, this director's involved in this. This is going to suck. And then season 1 didn't suck. He did a good job with it overall. Like, I have some gripes. But I was like, okay, not so bad. Maybe it's not so bad. And now season 2 happens and it goes, oh, okay. But I'm not trying to say like I told you so, because my worry did go away. I wasn't holding on to that. Just wait until it sucks. It's going to suck. I know it.
I think that's so fair. And I will say, like, kind of on that point, the one thing I'm salty about, which might just be like this might just be me, but I am really salty that season 1 did not have internal monologues, which we deemed like a really important part of the series. 100%. Like, they took those away, and then everyone is like, well, you don't need internal monologues because they're showing, not telling, only for this season to turn around and exposition us up the ass with every little thing. So I'm like, you guys obviously don't care about this anymore because whatever production reasons are an issue, but it is kind of like, okay, when push comes to shove, you will exposition us to death with really boring visuals. So I'm like, hey, it is kind of like, I'm not like I told you so, but it is kind of like, hey guys, that was kind of important back then, and you guys brushed it off, and now we're stuck with nothing but exposition.
Well, the problem with season 1 there, and I don't mean to talk about season 1 all the time, but that did the same thing where, like, yeah, they got rid of the internal monologues, but they still had the characters say all the stuff just out loud now.
Yeah.
When it doesn't make any sense. Like, I remember in Promised Neverweekly, we would jump on when Krone is just yelling her secret plan to herself out loud, and it's like, what is she doing? But in the manga, it's all internal. So it's like, yeah, she can think whatever she wants. No one's going to hear it. The worst example there for me, and again, I mentioned it in Neverweekly back in the day, was there was one, it was after Ray revealed himself to be the spy, and then he left the room, and the camera stayed on Norman. And in the manga, Norman's mind is thinking about, like, how he's going to deal with the situation and all this. Like, there's a lot of internal thoughts going. All of that's cut from the anime, but the camera still just focuses on a silent Norman. And I'm like, that's where his thoughts are supposed to be. They just remove his thoughts, but the camera angle still, like, we're just staring at a guy now. How is that any better?
Almost as if, like, the dialogue was supposed to be there, and then they just removed it.
Yeah, I was like, how is that better? Like, for the people who say, like, oh, internal monologues are bad, that's not better.
Yeah, like, I'm not against the idea of showing, not telling, but you got to replace it with something that still articulates those same thoughts if you're not going to have internal monologues, you know? Like, replace that with something, because as you said, if they're just showing him staring intensely into the camera, like, we're not getting that same level of information that we would if we could hear his thoughts. So, you know, so it does come back to, like, kind of some shoddily made decision making that I don't think really respects I'm not going to say respects because that sounds like I'm being a dick, but, like, I don't think does justice to the source material. So I think that's very evident in season 2, and I think there were some hints of that in season 1, but naturally when we called it out, some people were like, you guys are just salty source readers, but unfortunately we did kind of have some points. I'm sorry.
To bring it back into season 2, there was also some bad directing in season 2, I felt, that really bothered me. I complained about it a lot. There was a few moments, so we briefly touched on it earlier, but season 2 did still adapt the manga for the most part. It didn't do a whole lot of original stuff. It still just kind of followed the manga. So you got a lot of the manga scenes, like, straight from the manga. But they also added some original stuff here and there that sometimes just totally contradicted each other. Like, nobody thought to check to make sure that everything matched up. There was a scene when they get to the bunker, like we mentioned earlier, and they walk in, and Yugo's not there, and they decide to start searching that room, which in the manga, obviously, when there's a guy there, they don't search the room.
Right.
But why would they? But when he's not there, they search the room. Ray finds a radio, and he goes, hey guys, I found this radio. And everybody just kind of ignores him. They're just like, oh, whatever. And then later on in the episode, so that searching was obviously an original scene. Later on in the episode, when they're doing a manga scene, Ray walks into the room with them. They're all in the cafeteria or something. He walks into the room with the radio, and he goes, "Hey guys, I was just searching in the camera room. I found this radio." And everyone's going, "Oh my god, a radio!" And I was like, "Wait, what?" But nobody
You were
cared.
all there.
Nobody cared when you told them earlier. Like,
Right.
what? Like, it's so poorly, like, edited or storyboarded or something. It's like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Storyboarded, I think, would be the issue there. Another example of that is the scene where Isabella is like in demon jail. And
Okay.
they come in and they're like, "You fucked up. How are we going to get the kids back?" And she's like, "Let me take care of it. I'll bring them all back," which is an anime original scene. And then nothing follows from it. She doesn't do anything in the
That
rest
happened,
of the show to try
and
to
I was
get them
excited.
back.
I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm curious to see how this original plotline will play out." Like,
Right.
I'm not going to hate on it just because it's original, but I'm really interested to see what they have in store that told them that it's worth going original.
I think
That's what I
they
want to
did
see.
try to call back to that as if she was the one. I think the problem is like they showed that so early on, because later on in the series they show that they say something about like they're shipping out all the kids, and I think they say that was like her idea to lure the kids back,
Yeah.
but that was like 5 episodes later.
To lure the
so-
kids back after the kids already discovered that the exit from the demon world is at Gracefield, so they were already
And
going to
we're
go back.
already on the way back. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but they showed her in like episode 4. This shit is going down in like episode 10. So it's like, why are you showing that now? This is not relevant to the events transpiring in present time.
There's another scene similar to the radio one that I mentioned, which happens in like episode 6 or 7, I think. Maybe 8, but they're with Norman and his group, and Emma and Ray are talking to the 3 other people.
Yeah,
like
the Lambda
Vincent
crew.
and the girl with the axe or whatever. Like those.
Yeah, she was the
those
one
guys.
eating demon meat. I
Yeah.
forget her name. Yeah,
I
And-
don't remember her name either. And then there's Zazie is the other one.
But he
the
wasn't
dude
there.
with the bag on his head.
Oh,
yeah,
Zazie
he
wasn't
didn't.
there.
He's the cool.
Yeah, he
the,
wasn't there.
The other
Yeah.
like generic like black cowlick guy, black-haired cowlick
Yeah.
guy.
Laszlo?
Laszlo or
Sure.
something.
Sisla.
I'm amazed you guys remember their name. I remember
I,
Vincent kind of.
I mean, I just read it like 2 months
I remember
ago.
Vincent. I remember
Still.
Zazie because that sounds like a Kingdom Hearts character.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah,
I mean,
his
I
name was
wouldn't remember.
Sislo.
I wouldn't remember these guys if I just read it.
But they're talking to those 3 guys are talking to Ray and Emma, and they tell them like, "Hey, just so you know," and like Emma's doing all this like, "I'm going to save the demons," and her naive shonen protagonist, attitude. And then the other 3 tell them like, Norman's plan is to kill all the demons. And Emma and Ray are completely unfazed by this information. Like they couldn't care less. And they just go, "Oh, well, we're gonna save the demons, so that's fine. We don't really care." And then later that episode, you get the manga scene where Norman tells them, "I'm gonna kill all the demons," and they're like, "What? You're gonna do what?" And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
You heard this already? What are you talking about?"
Yeah, it seems kind of like nitpicking, but I think this is something that like stands out when you watch it because you've seen so many similar scenes. But at the end of this season in episode 11, when I should remember his name, James,
Peter Rattray.
yeah, Ratchery, like when he is like having his mental breakdown and realizes that he must Sudoku himself, he's like, blah, 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 good luck, I'll be watching on from hell. And then it shows like he's going to like slit his throat.
Uh-huh.
And then they're like jumping forward to save him for God knows what reason. And then they cut to the knife on the floor that he dropped, and there's no blood on
It's
it.
just stainless.
They show there being like a spray of blood when he does
Yeah.
it, but then
Yeah.
there's actually no blood on the knife.
And the reason that's been done before to illustrate that someone has either like jumped in front of it to die for someone, or to illustrate he didn't go through with it. That's normally what happens, and that's kind of like the lead-in for something like that. But no, he did actually just slit his own throat. They just forgot to put blood on the knife while he's drowning in a pool of blood. So
Right.
like
Correct. Yes.
it's like, it seems like nitpicking, but it's like I've seen that scene before to kind of bait you into thinking someone's gonna die, and then they're like, just kidding, they didn't die. But then this took it to the next level of double just kidding, he did actually die.
Yeah, it does feel like I feel like I'd feel less bad nitpicking this stuff if I were anime only, and I feel like I still would. I'd still go, that knife didn't even have blood on it. They're repeating things they've already done. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But because I'm a manga reader, I kind of feel like, well, I'm just like trying to rain on people's parade. But at the same time, it's like, but these are like objective problems.
Yeah, this is objectively shoddily made.
You can't. It's not an opinion. It's not my opinion. Like, oh, I think it was bad. It was like, that was actually contradictory. Like, you literally can't do that.
Yeah, like the communication is like miscommunicating information. Like, it's just bad editing because you know they didn't intend to do that. So it's like that. And then this is kind of funny. I don't know if you guys remember this because this was so in the weeds, but literally they are in the church and they have this like shot, like all of these shots shown of like, they're talking about the demons mass producing meat, and they have the human meat factories, and they keep going in between these shots of different types of vegetables in their garden. And it's like the weirdest thing. So it's like, it starts off with what looks like a lettuce plant. Then they go to something that looks like a weed plant. Then they go back to the lettuce plant. Then they go again to like a bean sprout plant. And then they go back to the lettuce plant for literally no reason. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you trying to convey? I'll send it to you guys in this chat because it's just like, it's not a big deal. It's just like weird. Like, I don't know what they're trying to do.
It's
like,
funny because you can kind of get that, like, it's supposed to be like a food visual metaphor, I guess.
Right.
But like, they could only think of 3 different kinds of vegetable.
Yeah, it's like lettuce, weed, bean sprouts. Like, and going back to the lettuce as if that's like a thing. I just don't understand.
Heads. Lettuce have heads. People have heads. I think the connection is pretty clear.
They eat the heads. I'm showing these now so you guys can just see it, but it's not a big deal. I just took screenshots because I was like, what are they doing? Like, this is not a deal breaker. This is not the, like, reason I gave it a bad score. I'm just so perplexed by what they're trying to communicate in this scene.
Right.
And that's just, like, I think the whole season is just made up of weird choices like that, where you're like, what are you guys doing? Like, what's the goal here?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
It's just like moment to moment, nothing is really unforgivable, but there's just so many strange decisions that they all add up to make something that just feels weird and unsatisfying all the way through.
It definitely lends itself to oh my god, Shot, these are so many pictures of like beets or whatever, radish or
That's
something.
what I mean. What is this
yeah,
plant?
There's so many pictures of them. It kind of, I think, is what really sparked this, I don't know, quote unquote theory. I don't know if it's even a theory. It's more just people that don't really understand how the industry works. But a lot of people are kind of saying,
headcanon.
a lot of people kind of just saying like, oh, this is clearly them just going, we don't need Neverland. We have Shadow's House next season, which is similar. We'll just get rid of this. Who cares? Don't even put any effort into this. Focus on this one, which isn't really how it works because it's different staff and it doesn't make any sense.
Production committee,
But this kind of stuff definitely doesn't help with those kind of misconceptions.
Yeah. And that's such a big thing with the industry is people are trying to like, you know, they're trying to guess like, why is this happening? And then you see all the like, I would say very uninformed comments that are like, oh, this is because Cloverworks is putting all their budget into Horimiya and Wonder Egg Priority when realistically these teams are completely. That's not how this works. It's like they're at the same studio, but the staff is different. The production committee is different.
Yeah.
Like the organization for each is very different. You know, it's not like
they just
maybe for that example,
they're being made in the same building is really the common through line there. Really.
Yeah, I don't know if this is accurate, but it's like, you know, there are like 3 McDonald's you go to. Just because they're all McDonald's doesn't mean they're all working the same. Like one person working at McDonald's making it good does not mean that the other McDonald's is also good or bad. Like they're just different even though they're under the same company.
Right.
Although sometimes people from McDonald's go and work at other McDonald's.
Yeah, that is
true. They're short-staffed.
I should not misrepresent McDonald's.
I have a short story regarding that.
Hit us.
Where a friend of mine, so in Oregon, where I'm from, we had a local place called Sherry's. It's like a little family diner. Anyone from Oregon will know they're pretty great. But my friend got banned from one once because he got in an argument with a staff member there regarding a Kino ticket. That's a bit of a longer story. It's unrelated. But
that does sound fun.
She banned him, and she's like, "You're not allowed to come back here again." We tried to go back a few times. She always recognized him and was like, "You're not allowed in here." And we're just like, "Okay, screw it." So we went to a different one that's a 15-minute drive away once, and she was working there.
Oh no. Okay, that's just bad luck. That's bad luck.
Our drinks that night, she couldn't ban us from that one. She couldn't tell us not to go there.
Oh, good. Oh, that's a good end.
But the drinks that we got never had ice, and they were always warm.
Oh, that's mean. That's so petty. That's so petty, actually.
Yeah, I didn't mean to derail that. It just reminded me. Sometimes
no, that's so funny.
You will have the same people working at the same store, but probably not so much the case with anime here. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert.
I do have to say that your story is more relevant to the Promised Neverland than these pictures of plants that were shown in the Promised Neverland. So take that as a massive win. Yeah, but we'll have to get the story on the whole backstory on this lore because this sounds funny. But yeah, I mean, it's also just kind of like, if you work at a company, if someone else messes up at their job, that doesn't mean you mess up at your job and vice versa. You just happen to be at the same company. So
right.
Anything that happens to Wonder Egg, Promised Neverland, Horimiya, like any studio, like that's not related. Because you see that a lot with like, oh, everyone's like, the Mappa gave the Attack on Titan budget to Jujutsu Kaisen. And that's just not how it works. They happen to be there, but they're like two completely separate properties. It's not like they're leaking the money into something else. Like it just doesn't work like that. So, I mean, hopefully we're educating someone on that, but
probably not.
Probably not. If they haven't listened this far, like they're not down. But yeah, so that's just not how it works. It's not to blame. I do think you could blame some COVID issues, production issues. I do think a lot of the issues that we've been seeing lately is the usual production issues in anime, along with COVID making everything tough.
I don't ever. COVID issues. I always maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I shouldn't know how. I'm not an expert. I'm not confident how anything works in the industry, but when I think of like COVID issues, I think more of like animation problems more,
Yeah, that's
like
true.
If something looks bad, if something just looks bad, I'm more willing to just be like, COVID problem, they didn't have enough time to work on it.
Yeah.
Or it's harder to work from home maybe to get everything working well together.
Yeah, I see that too.
I don't know.
And all the issues with here were just with like weird adaptational decisions and bad storyboarding. Yeah, is really what it boils down.
And I don't think I can blame COVID for that, because if you're stuck at home for COVID, you can still storyboard an anime. You're not stuck not doing your work.
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm not sure how it works in terms of like what they are able to do and what they're not able to do in terms of like staying at home. But I think you guys are right that the COVID is not responsible for unambitious work. Like a lot of the problems here are like they wanted to replace manga content with watered down version of manga content, but they didn't think of creative ways to present it nor explore it. And you can't blame COVID for that. That could have happened in, 2020 October, or it'll happen in 2021 of January.
I mean, and you see it happen in anime all the time, even before COVID. Like, you'll get anime that are just not very well-made adaptations of things. Yeah. I know, light novel fans love to, right or wrong, I'm never a light novel reader to know if they're telling the truth or not, but they love to say, oh, well, they ruined this. In the light novel, this character was very clearly doing blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, okay.
We'll see. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's also, what was I going to say? Did I tell you guys actually the story of, like, the Promised Neverland panel at Anime Expo?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, no.
So back in 2019, when we could go in public with groups, I went to Anime Expo, and I went to the Promised Neverland panel, which had the director and then the English voice actors for the main three and the Japanese voice actors for the main three. So it was kind of cool that they did, like, a cross voice actor, cross language panel. It was cool. And this is so anecdotal. So, like, this isn't like a source on anything, but they were finishing up the panel and they were like, let's hear some words from the director. And he essentially said, like, thank you for the support. We're going to try and get through this. And that was it. It was like, it's like, he sounded like he was going off to war to make season 2 of this shit, and you could not be, like, less happy about it. And it was, like, very odd. Like, the whole tone of the panel.
That's a very weird, it's like, I'd almost just be willing to say that's a mistranslation, but it's like, that's a weird way to end a panel.
Yeah, and that's
really funny.
It was so funny and ridiculous because, like, the thing was, it wasn't even just, like, the words. It wasn't just, like, we're going to try to get through it. It's like, he looked depressed the entire time. He looked exhausted the entire time. And he just looked like he was, like, so pissed off at being there. Like, he could not have been less happy to be there. So that was
Maybe
also...
he just had a bad flight.
Yeah. Maybe we could chalk it up to that. But it was just, like, he was, like, not about it. He was not about being there. And ever since I saw that, I'm like, I don't have much hope for this season just because the director looks, like, tortured to be working on this. So... You know,
That's awesome. That's so funny.
It's really funny. Like, he really did say, we're going to try to get through this. Like, we're trying to survive this time. And I'm like, this is kind of an awkward tone because we're all looking forward to this. And you're like, yeah, maybe we'll survive. We'll find out.
Back onto the season 2, though. One more thing I want to touch on that before we start talking about the manga.
Yeah.
Is the last couple episodes, once they, like, return to Gracefield and everything, a lot of people who were anime only were understandably very confused by the montage at the end. Like, everything after Peter Rattray dies, where they basically just, like, wrap up.
They just montage through all the content they skipped quickly.
Right, yeah. In, like, 10 seconds, they show, like, the end of every storyline they didn't include. And, like, do you think there's any way they could have handled that stuff better
Not
without
do it at all?
actually having to do those storylines?
I mean, like, they could have removed half the montage and just, I don't know, like, I don't know. I guess their idea was, like, okay, the main crew have to, like, stay and, like, wrap shit up back at home. I think I would have just, I don't know, Smurf, what were you going to say? I think you had an idea.
I would have not done it at all. I would have just said, like, all right, well, we hadn't really introduced any of the nobles yet, so we'll just pretend they don't exist. We haven't really introduced the concept of Emma making a new promise yet. We'll just pretend that doesn't exist. Although they did mention the 7 walls in episode 3. So
right, yeah. The 7 walls, which they then cut.
So, yeah, because back when they were still trying to follow the manga, and we're still following the manga up to that point when they leave to go to the bunker and Sujin and Mushika are still in the forest, and Sujin was like something about the 7 walls, like they're gonna find the 7 walls or something, and then they literally never brought that up ever again in the entire season. They could have, I guess, just pretended that never happened. I mean, they did that for everything else already.
Yeah, they might as well. Like, you know, give yourself some leeway.
So I feel like they should have just had Emma, Norman, and Ray just, I don't know. I guess they could have stayed behind, and that's fine, and, you know, cleaned up some stuff, but they didn't have to just montage. They could have just been like, so then they went around to the other fields and convinced the mothers to stand down or something. And it's like, that's okay, cool, whatever. They didn't have to just, okay, and then Emma met this kid with a dragon. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Right. In the anime, do they ever even, like, talk about the fact that there are all the other farms? Like, I know they say they're the mass production ones, but they don't even talk about, like, the other high quality
I think they did
farms,
in season 1 because we knew that they were, like, in the same plant area.
We just know about, like, the Gracefield has the cluster around it.
The various plants,
And we've heard about, obviously, the one that Norman was at, the Lambda facility.
Right.
I feel like they talked about, I feel like they did mention other farms. Like, I think it was like, yeah, they exist. Because Gracefield was always known as, like, that's the best farm.
Right.
Like, Gracefield is the best.
That's true.
So
which
I feel
implies
like
the existence of other ones.
That there are other ones.
And they did mention it in season 1 because they have the like, neighboring farms, like, in their octagon. So, like, they did mention it. But, yeah, it wasn't in detail. I think to go along with that, I think you could still montage that. You could montage the idea of showing Emma and them cleaning stuff up without introducing the nobles, but just still make it like them going around and doing shit, or even just montage and show the guys in the new world, I guess our world, just show them and then almost like leave it as like a mystery and then cliffhanger it with like Emma and them coming over.
Right.
Which they mostly did.
Like, I think that's probably right. They could have implied that the main group is like freeing the rest of the farms the same way they did Gracefield without bringing up the nobles, without bringing up the promise or
the
anything
dragon
like
dude.
that. Because, yeah.
And like we knew the promise existed. Like they did talk about it in season 2, but they hadn't gone over the fact of like Emma going to make a new one at any point. They only just acknowledged that was a thing that happened 1,000 years ago or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's cool. We can just, that happened 1,000 years ago. Got it.
Yeah.
We don't have to just randomly introduce, oh, by the way, Emma went to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Why? We didn't tell you.
We forgot. Yeah. I think that's like just so, it's so weird. Like why I think that montage is kind of like a microcosm of this season as a whole, of like latching on to manga content that they're not going to explore for no reason, instead of just replacing it with new shit, which they're going to do anyway. Like the weirdest shit of all time. Just a ridiculous thing. The one thing I wanted to comment on before we move over to other discussions that I've already done a bad job of staying on track for. So sorry guys.
That's okay.
Speaking of like going off the tracks, I love that they added a random scene of one of the kids playing piano for literally no reason. Like, I don't think they had a piano at their place. I don't think they learned how to play piano.
No, they did have the piano because
they did.
Playing the piano was the way to get into the secret room with all the guns.
No, I mean back at Gracefield.
Oh, at Gracefield.
They had a piano.
Yeah, maybe not.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get...
Some of them knew how to play piano.
I will allow this, but can you just, like, this kid is, like, the orphan equivalent of that guy at the party who sees that there's a guitar and just starts playing when no one wants that. Like,
anyway, here's Wonderwall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's this kid. And like, it obviously served the purpose of showing like the hidden exit, but like this kid just like randomly playing piano when they're trying to hide from demons underground and like are not really supposed to be making noise. Like, I get.
Well, I feel like that's a pretty safe place to play piano,
it probably is, but like for the sake of
he's not like in a shack in the middle of the desert.
True.
And just like, oh, let's just play the piano in here.
Yeah, it is still random. It still infuriates me, so I will rant. But you are correct that they probably won't get discovered, but still, it's just like, fuck this. Yeah, so fuck that kid. Have you guys had anything else?
That's the kid with the tiny eyes and the huge forehead,
No,
right?
it's the redhead.
I don't think so.
I know which kid you're talking about.
I think the one you're talking about is the one who ran over and hit a piano key at the end,
that kid.
which happened to be the correct one to open the door.
The correct one to open the secret exit. Yeah.
Yep.
The Batcave. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the kid.
Yes.
And his just
the Batcave where they changed the text on the walls.
Oh my god, they show the names, the text on the walls for help. It shows the names of like Hugo's people, because they put Lucas on the wall, which is the other character.
Yeah, they put Lucas, which I don't think was in the... I went back to look at the manga. His name was not on the wall in the manga, I don't think. Also,
Is it not?
I don't believe so.
That's weird,
because
actually.
I think it's the people
You can't really
died.
tell the names very well.
Okay.
The big difference was the big word they had was different.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember what it was.
I do remember what it was. It was... We can get into that. Is that a good transition for manga talk?
Yeah,
Sure.
We're going to jump into manga stuff now. For anyone who hasn't read the manga, we alluded to there are some controversies about like the final arc and everything. Mm-hmm. I think we all still agree it's definitely worth reading.
I would agree. I think it's, especially if you're going to suffer through season 2, you might as well read the manga to see what we're bitching about. So yeah, there's still good content, and it's still worth watching.
So if you have any interest in reading the manga, go do that. Which means you might want to stop listening now and then come back later.
Yeah, we will timestamp, so be aware of time
this is our official warning that we're going to start talking about manga spoilers now.
You have been warned. Forever hold your peace.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. The word on the wall was poachers.
Yes, I just found my screenshot of it while Sinrus was talking.
And what was it? And what was it in the other?
I think it was just help.
So there's no reason for that to exist at all.
So I found the manga panel. The names actually are pretty clear, and I do see Lucas and Pedro. So all those names are in the manga. So that wasn't added. I thought that was added, but I guess it wasn't. Yeah. So on the panel in the manga, it says poachers, and then it says help, like all around it. Whereas
Right.
in the anime, they just put the word help.
Help like multiple times, and that's how I felt watching. So it was too much meta commentary for literally no reason whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, like, writing poachers and help all over the wall in big letters doesn't really make sense in the manga either.
I think it was supposed to be because Yugo was like going crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, because
I guess
that's
so.
why he would write their names, because they were from his farm
Right.
and he
like,
thought they died.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was the context of the original manga when like
I don't
Yugo
remember
existed, rest
what
in peace.
poachers meant though, but
Well, the poachers were the
Pond's-
ones who like brought them to Goldie Pond.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Still weird, still a bit weird to write it in there, but that's.
I'm
you know.
willing to chalk it up to
Yeah.
just him going crazy, which was believable enough in the context, but I might have to go back and read it. But it did its job of being creepy and unsettling, and I respected that.
Right. Yeah. Shaw and I were talking the other night when she sent me the screenshot with all the names, and Lucas's name is on there. And I'm like, I guess it's just canon in the anime version of the story that Lucas like just died at Goldie Pond.
Yeah,
because nobody ever came to save him.
yeah, like they just have Goldie Pond, but they just were like, nope, everything is yeeted.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so stupid. Okay. I mean, like, it's just so, this is so dumb. I feel so sad because, you know, I think Goldie Pond, this is the Goldie Pond rant. I think it's just such a cool arc, and I don't know about you guys, but we can get into it. One of my favorite parts about the entire series as a whole is how they commentate on humans being viewed as food or sport or just like entertainment / substance for the demons, and how we can kind of relate that to our society. So the idea of just like high grade humans, you know, like organic humans or like hunting for humans is like such a terrifying concept because of how they're utilizing it in this story, but how there is a connection between that and how we treat meat in real life. So the entire presentation of Goldie Pond as this like Disneyland looking, like cheerful, kiddish looking place that is actually like a brutal hunting ground for these kids is like such a terrifying concept to me. And it was when like the horror aspect of the series really shined. And I remember reading that chapter where Emma wakes up and they show that like, oh, there's like music playing, and then she's like, where am I? What is this cheerful looking place? And then she has to get like told by one of the kids on the run, like it's a hunting ground. And you're just like, you feel with dread immediately. And that specific page is what I was looking forward to seeing in the anime adaptation, because it could truly be elevated with like creepy music. Like you could really feel the horror. Now, and we didn't get that. So fuck everything.
I think there are two statements I want to make, which I think are both true, although they kind of contradict each other.
Okay, that's a good
Goldie
setup.
Pond.
Let's go.
And one of them is that Goldie Pond is equal with the first arc for best content in the series.
Okay.
And second is that they were not wrong to cut it.
Yeah, but like I'd say okay, go ahead.
So like just like the way the pacing in the manga works is that if they were going to adapt the whole thing like correctly, you know, and try to do like a good full adaptation of it, if they were going at like the same pace, that would be like a 6 or 7 season thing.
Yeah.
And Goldie Pond doesn't actually like matter for the rest of the series. All it really does is introduce a bunch of new characters who are very good, but not actually like relevant to anything.
Yeah, like I can definitely see what you mean of how like it is something that they could easily cut because it's almost kind of like not like a side story, but like it's different, you know.
It's also I think it's pretty important in Ray and Emma learning how to kill demons.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think there is importance also.
So
go ahead.
It wouldn't have been 6 or 7. I guess it would have been 6 or 7. It would have been like 6 cores total if they had done a full adaptation.
Right.
Because
yeah, that's what I mean.
The anime season 1 did 37 chapters and the manga is 181. So it would have been like 5 cores maybe. So
okay.
Yeah, and I
would have been more deserving of that than something else airing right now that's 5 cores.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, do they need this content? No, but does it help when it comes to some of the like philosophical philosophical discussions later on, or some of the practical things like actually hunting back against demons, or some of the some of the feelings and development for the characters. Because I think something that makes I think one of the big negatives for the manga for people, I think when it was this is when people were pissed off, was when Emma said she didn't want to kill the demons, even though that was I think it's pretty in character for her to think that, but something that I think makes it a bit more interesting and feels kind of like a more more fulfilling feeling for her is that she went through all of this shit at the hands of the demons, being hunted and having this whole rivalry with Lewis and this really bloody traumatic situation, that whole thing, and the fact that she's still able to kind of justify their existence afterwards makes it more powerful than her just being so I befriended this one demon, and then there's this cool blind demon who gives us food sometimes in the church, So I think it kind of works for a lot of the character moments later down the line that she was able to overcome something like this, but
that's true.
Yeah, so it's kind of they can cut it, but what else are they cutting in the process that might be deemed unnecessary but feel like a whole later on?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. You guys are mentioning the concept of the manga and how it's how we treat food and stuff. Mm-hmm. Did either of you read the one shot that came out after the manga called We Were Born?
No, I didn't. How was it? What happened?
So, it's from the same people. It's basically Promised Neverland in the real world. So, no demons. And it kind of revolves around a church that's a child trafficking ring. Basically.
Oh, I did hear about this.
The orphans live in the church and get shipped out from there.
Which is what the lie they originally told Gilda and Dawn. That's what they said happened to Connie.
Right.
Yeah, until someone puts a stop to it, which I thought was kind of I didn't think the one shot was that good, but I like the concept of, I kind of like how they can apply that to the real world and be look, if this is how this would be in the real world, it's trafficking, and we have this evil, kind of church versus where you have the father instead of the mother running it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I think Promised Neverland could use some more playing around with its concepts. I think it got a little too... I think another reason that I think some people started to dislike it was because it got a little too... I don't know the word, just too straight.
Oh, it got a bit less morally ambiguous, because one of the big things in the first season that everyone liked, that I liked especially, but I think everyone liked it, was the idea that you can be as optimistic and hopeful as Emma, but it can't come without some sacrifices. So it's they escape the farm, but they can't escape with everyone. Norman still gets shipped out, and they have to leave half of the people behind, and they have to come back and deal with that later. So
right. And then you have the villain who's not evil, because Isabella's just kind of well, I can't do anything to save you.
Yeah.
But I can give you guys the best lives I can until you die.
Until you die. Yeah.
Which is that's good motivation for her. Yeah, I think they do a good job of having everything. Nobody outside of the demons, you can just look at and be well, they're the bad guys. They just eat people. But then they even get their own thing. It's well, they have to eat people.
Yeah.
If they want to stay sentient.
Yeah.
So they're not even necessarily the bad guys. It's more that the nobles, then the rich eat the rich.
Yeah, eat the rich. Yeah,
it all comes back. It all comes back to
the only people you're allowed to eat.
They're the evil ones, the rich people.
Yeah, exactly. They still made a lot of the demons compelling. I think Lewis was a really compelling villain, even though he wasn't he didn't really have any sympathetic traits. He was just kind of he was just in it for the sport and kind of respected the game, and but he made it really interesting. I think he's probably a bit more I'll say traditional shonen villain of I respect him a bit more for being cool and badass than super deep,
Right.
so to speak. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
but he still.
And I think
Oh, go for it.
what you were talking about with the horror at the Goldie Pond arc, one of the moments that stands out to me is once they like finally dispatch all the other demons that are doing the hunting, and they're like, okay, the plan was that after we were done with them, all of the groups would like converge on Lewis so we could take him all at once. Well, the plan has gone exactly as intended, and we've got 3 people left.
Yeah, that's like wild that they did all that, and it's still like everyone gets mowed down.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's like the overall presentation of that is just so cool to me. I think it was like, I know a lot of people say, oh, it like falls off after the first arc, but I really don't think that's true when you have Goldie Pond, it does have the themes to rival the first arc, even if it's not as suspenseful in the same way, but it's a bit more action.
It's just it's like a different genre, basically.
Yeah.
Which is why people are like, oh, my mind game, like, psychological thriller is not a mind game psychological thriller anymore. It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I can kind of understand being disappointed with that, but I think it's just really organic that the series would change after they escape from the farm. That it would be a lot more survival-ish and a lot more action-packed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the point where I would say that the manga starts kind of falling off is not until they like get to Norman's like escaped village in the tree.
Yeah.
And even at that point, it's because of like the stuff you were talking about, Smurf, where it just gets a little too black and white and straightforward.
Yeah.
Because you have Norman like make his heel turn, and he's like kind of an anti-hero, maybe an antagonist for a while there. But it's like the way the whole series has been set up is that the like world building and everything with the way the promise works and all of that, and the demons like physiology, meaning they have to eat humans and all. It's all very painstakingly constructed to make it impossible for Emma to like have her cake and eat it too. And in order for them to find a way for her to get everything she wants, they kind of just had to resort to bullshit in the end.
Yeah. I think that
Yes, I would
agree.
I would have obviously ending spoilers, but if you're listening this far, I don't think you care at this point. I think that the series definitely would have been better had it ended bittersweet.
Yeah.
I agree.
What I liked was, Emma goes to make the promise. It cuts away from the promise. You don't see what the promise she made was. And then later on, she's like, yeah, we all just get to go back to the human world and live, and there's no consequences. And I was annoyed when I read that. I was like, oh, come on. I was like, are you kidding me? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I had the same reaction.
But see, you just got to go right to the next chapter. I had to wait going.
That's a good point.
I had to wait going, I can't believe they're just fucking doing this. Like, this is ridiculous. And then you eventually find out that, no, she just lied to them so that they wouldn't worry, which is basically what she's done the whole series. And it's like, okay, I like that. And then she loses her memories. I didn't like them finding her again and just being like, oh, we all get to be a family. No, if it had been, they all get to live happily ever after, but Emma is now permanently separated from them, I would have liked that so much more.
I agree. But I think that still wouldn't have solved my biggest issue with it, which is that the whole, like, demon god thing just, like, doesn't really track for me.
Yeah.
I agree with that as well. That is where it started to lose me a bit as well. That's kind of when I was like, yeah, this is a 9, not a 10 anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the way I feel about it is I think the last arc is underwhelming, but I don't think the problem really lies in the ending as much as the path to get there. But I'm of the opinion that, like, if you're going to take kind of bullshit to get to the ending, which we did, I'm kind of okay with the happy ending because I don't want to feel like you used bullshit and then we still get kind of like an unsatisfying ending. But I do agree that I would have been down with Emma never regaining her feelings, and they all just kind of, they're living, but they're not necessarily a family, because it's all about her trying to save them, but it's not necessarily, I don't think it should necessarily guarantee that she gets to live a happy life with them. She just assured their safety.
Yeah. And like her whole character the whole time was basically, I'm going to sacrifice whatever I need to make sure that these people are happy.
Yeah.
So if I have to sacrifice my own happiness to do it, so be it. I'm okay with series where the main character sticks to their themes or their ideals, I suppose.
My ideals.
And sacrifices for, themes and ideals. Everyone's favorite.
Yeah.
And they keep moving forward.
Oh, God. Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'm like the only person in the world who hates that that line.
I don't actually
I thought we just
memed
memed it. I think it's a good line, but I think we just memed it into memery.
I can't tell anymore. I don't know who's serious.
Anyway, Smurf, please, what were you gonna say?
But I like characters who can stick to their ideals and sacrifice and keep consistent ideals throughout, from the beginning of a series to the end, or maybe not even the beginning. Maybe they grow into them and develop them as they go. But I'm okay with endings that are consistent with what the show has, with what the series has established beforehand.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the biggest fault of the reason people were so unsatisfied with Emma saying something like, I don't want to kill all the demons, even though that's very thematically consistent for her, is because they didn't really do a good enough job of making the demons sympathetic. So, like, if they had dedicated more time to justifying the existence of demons, then I think we could have, like, gotten behind that perspective a bit more, instead of just being like, yeah, I guess genocide is wrong, Are
you talking about the anime or the manga there?
I'm talking about the manga, but, I mean,
okay.
That's why I think, like, they dedicated a bit more time in the anime so I could feel a bit more sympathetic for them. But in the manga, up until that point, we only really had Musica and Sanju. Like, those were the only two reasons we had to feel, like, somewhat sympathetic to the demons. But this is also after the events of Goldie Pond, where the demons were hunting them. So you're kind of feeling a bit more like, yeah, fuck the demons, let's get them. So...
Right. Well, I actually think Goldie Pond was pretty good for that because of the... I don't remember their names now, but the, like, brother-sister pair
those two.
Of demons.
Yeah, I forget them, but I know who you're talking about.
When they kill the sister
mm-hmm.
and the brother, like, loses his goddamn mind and flips out and, like, kills everybody, that was, like, a really cool scene that I think added a lot to the existence of the demons, both emotionally and also, like, your first inklings at, like, okay, what kind of monsters are they really? Mm-hmm. Because he, like, eats her body to Hulk out and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I think that is a fair point. I think it's just a bit tough when it is kind of like they're still just kind of, like, killing us and stuff. And I think showing the demon society in terms of, like, hey, these are people who are struggling to get by. They're struggling to have meat to maintain their form. They care about each other. Right. They care about their siblings, which was shown in the anime a bit more. I think that does a good job.
And I guess by the time I picked up the manga, we had already gotten to that point in the anime. So maybe I'm kind of projecting what I saw there onto the manga in a way that didn't really exist.
No, but I think that makes sense.
Because I think it was after the Martha moment.
Yeah.
Was when I picked that was the episode before I picked up the manga. So everything up to there I already had in my mind.
Yeah, that's once you go Martha, that's when you go back. But
right.
Yeah. And they showed a bit more after Goldie Pond, but I think it also comes down to, it's not just, like, about making the demon sympathetic. I think they needed a lot more time to flesh out the demon noble society, because I was just, like, losing track of everything, like, the demon nobles, who's a sibling of who, I don't care, like, what's going on, like, all of that.
And they, like, tried to put in the whole lore backstory with, like, the clan that got exiled for trying to come up with, like, a more equitable way to share meat and everything.
Yeah.
That was, like, I didn't really need the, like, big scary rebel demon to have a sympathetic backstory.
Yeah, like, I'm pretty good. I think, and this was all happening at the same time as the Norman genocide arc that they're trying to wrap that up. So it's, like, all of this going on at once, and I'm like, I really don't care about this. So I think they just kind of needed to do that a bit more organically and, like, not, I don't know. They just kind of, I think they fumbled that a bit. And I think that's when people started losing interest. But the point where I was like, this is no longer a 10, this is when there's no going back, is when they did bring back Lewis out of literal nowhere. And he's like, no, I will help the children. And I was like, fuck this shit. This is so stupid. This is shonen bullshit. And I hate
that
this.
Was during the fight with the queen, right?
Yep. He was supposed to be dead, and they brought him back.
No, it's after, because he's already, after the queen dies, Sanju and Musica are like, okay, this is our chance to, like, install ourselves as like the
Okay.
ones in charge of Demon Society.
Right.
And then the nobles' underlings are, I don't remember exactly what they do, but they like turn the people against them and like arrest them, and they're about to be executed.
And then
when
Lewis just
shows
saves
up.
the day.
And Lewis just shows up, and he's like, as the brother of the dead queen, I'm the king, and I say I'm not the king. That guy
Yeah.
is.
That guy is. It's like
Yeah.
so funny.
Classic king move.
Yeah.
Right.
So like once that shit happens, I'm like, okay, we don't care anymore. I'm kind of down for a happy ending. We don't we stopped caring, but I mean, I'm still would have been down for a bittersweet ending, but I do think it's like the path to get there should have been better.
Yeah.
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 I think another thing that was kind of dissatisfying in that respect is I thought it really interesting the occasional times that like Peter Rattray or whoever else brings up like, you know, just because even if you get to the human world, it's not like things are necessarily going to be any better for you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we get to the point where they finally escape to the human world, and they get there, and the Rattray clan is just like, welcome to the human world. Let us take care of literally everything for you.
Yeah, like that was kind of wild that like they just rolled up and they had a welcome committee.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's like so wild that they just have people in suits helping them out, like, and then as we got to see in the montage, this is a bit different, but it's like everyone's going to school, everyone's happy, everyone's like doing great, they're doing grand, and it's like, what? I thought, how are they like, they have no birth certificates, they have no record of being in this world, like
Right.
what's going on?
Yeah.
Also, this is like a slight, not a fair complaint, but something I remember back when this was publishing. Smurf, do you remember the ocean theories we had going on?
I do.
Those were so
Yes.
cool.
What was the deal with
So
that?
there was a lot of artwork that I think her name. Why do I mix her name up? It's like I think Podunka. Is that her? How you say it?
Pozuka?
Pozuka.
Unfortunately, I closed the...
Pozuka. Yeah, I closed it too.
Pozuka Demizu.
Yeah, Pozuka. She's the artist. She had this like she was doing all these color spreads and color pages of like the Promised Neverland and like with like ocean related things. Like you see some of the
Yeah.
volume covers where they're like underwater or standing underwater. So people
Or underwater, or there's like skylight in, like, it'll be like them in a room and there's a skylight, but you can see like some fish or like some ripples like
Yeah.
in the light, like shadows of them.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a lot of art that shows water above. So I remember Shaw was really heavy on the like the demon world is under the it's under the ocean.
Yeah.
Like they're in the same world, it's just under the ocean.
Yeah, because they also show her like talking with the like king demon. There's like water under her. So like people had all these theories about like it's going to be under the water, and that's how they need to get to the surface. Like everyone had these
And
like
all the doors to the surface are like elevators.
yeah, because
That's true.
so
Yeah.
there were like
Oh, that is a cool theory.
yeah, and it was like so many people had cool theories, and I'm like sending these to Smurf and Jack. I'm like, oh my god, what if they're underwater? What like how are they going to do this? And then they show them going to Earth, and they just like yeeted them there instantly. Like no
yeah, they just
showing.
are on the beach.
Yeah, they're just on the beach. So they could have come from
Yeah.
water, but we didn't get to explore that. Like they just got
Right.
there. No showing of how they got there. So that was kind of underwhelming, but I'm not going to like hold a fan theory against the manga. You know, I just thought that was like
Sure.
that was just a
Yeah.
cool
Yeah,
theory.
you're not gonna be a JoJo fan.
No, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm not being like
What
you
do you,
didn't
what do
do
you mean
my
that's
thing.
not Josuke? Yeah. This sucks.
Yeah, so that was just like I think that's also just such a like cool place where the fandom was at some point, where like people were making theories, people had so much hope and like intrigue and like what was going to happen, and now we're just like,
Yep.
damn, look at these fucking plants. Why do they keep showing lettuce plants and shit?
Right.
Yeah. So I thought that was a cool theory. I wonder if they still have it. I think it was on like I think they still have it on Tumblr or something. But yeah, I think I do want to say one thing. Well, we're probably saying more than one thing, but I know that a lot of people say that like it kind of goes downhill after Goldie Pond, but I do want to say I really do love the reunion chapter with Norman, Emma, and Ray. I think they did.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
That jumping hug is excellent.
Yeah.
That hug is perfect. That was so emotional.
Too bad that wasn't in the anime.
Well, the slap that Ray gave him in the anime was like...
Yeah, they kept that. I like that.
That's true.
And that whole scene was just so powerful and emotional. I love seeing that, even though, like, we all knew Norman was alive, but the way that they showed him coming back into their lives was great.
Yeah. And I really liked in the manga how, like, the chapter after that, you get a lot of the people who have, like, been living in this town that, like, basically worships Norman as a god.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, did you see him yesterday? Like, that was weird.
Yeah. When they comment on him being, like, seeming like a normal person, but, like, to them, he's, like, one of the Rattery clan.
Yeah, because they think he is William Minerva, right?
Yeah. I think they actually do think that. And
he definitely took the moniker.
He took
and was
the
calling
name
himself as William Minerva.
Right.
Yeah. And so I thought that was cool, and just the way they presented Norman after the fact. And then the one chapter where Norman goes on his huge like genocidal monologue about, like, you know, he's with the other crew and he's saying, like, hey, I'm not going to turn my back on you guys, and they're shown torturing and experimenting on one of the demons. That chapter was like such a huge part of the reason I fell in love with the series, just the way they presented that with, like, the dark and the light contrast. And then the last panel they have is of him with that cool, like, it's kind of mean now.
Half skull, half
I can
like,
be
half
your demon
angel,
or your
half,
angel. But,
or
like,
your angle.
Yeah.
I've kind of made that in my memory, but, like, when they show that, it's like him looking really cool, and I was like, whoa, this is so dope for Norman's character. I love this character arc. Like, I'm really invested in this. And that was a part where people were kind of like, yeah, the series went downhill for me, but I'm like, no, this is when I'm, like, most
I
attached.
really love that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. I loved the resolution of the Norman character arc with kind of, like, their understanding of why he was doing the stuff he was doing, because it's not just, like, they experimented on him and he turned crazy and went vengeful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they established pretty well by the end that he also doesn't really want to commit genocide.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that, like, he's such a perfectionist and feels so responsible for everyone else that he can't allow himself to take any course of action except the one that's 100% likely to succeed. You know, he can't allow himself to show the weakness and take the chance on not killing the demons.
And, like, what's the other... Like, you know, obviously his plan is, okay, we're going to kill the demons. Once the demons are dead, humans will be fine. Like, what's the other option he's been giving? Is just somebody going, nah, bro, trust me.
Yeah.
I got this.
Right,
I'll do it.
exactly.
I'll save everyone. And it's like, how? What's your plan? I'll do it. That's my plan. It's like, that's not a plan.
Yeah. Something...
I can't trust you to do this.
Yeah, I think that's something that, like, kind of falls flat, especially in the anime without, like, Emma's experience in Goldie Pond, is kind of like... I think it would have been kind of cool if they show Norman being like, look, Emma, you befriended a demon and you guys were bros and they saved you. I was tortured in this facility with these people watching kids get killed every day. I'm not too fond of these guys. And these people, like, think of the feelings of the other people who've been hurt a lot worse than you have. You're kind of like, you have this rose-tinted view of them. I've been suffering. That's been something that they could have brought up. And naturally, they don't really have that in the manga because Emma did suffer at the hand of the demon, so, like, she has her own experience, which gives her a bit more weight to her claims. But I think it's kind of...
Well, I think I would say the opposite there, is that in the manga, that's pretty much all there is to the Norman thing, is that he's like, yeah, I suffered, so now I'm angry.
Yeah.
But in the manga, they're much more like, I don't want to be doing this either, but I don't feel like I have a choice.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I think that's really true too. I kind of forget, like, the specific way in which they resolved his arc, but I do think it was handled better than the Martha moment, that's for sure.
The anime did also do one really good thing about Norman, which is that he wasn't 6 feet tall.
No, because I like that because, well, I guess it could go either way. I like that they show that he just looks so off in the manga, which helps him play into that, like, I'm Peter Rattery or no, I'm Mr. Minerva persona, so, like, you're able to buy into that, but at the same time, it's easier in the anime to buy into his lie that he wasn't experimented on because he doesn't look like the others.
Right.
So I could go either way.
Right. Well, I just didn't like that he had apparently a huge growth spurt at 10 years old.
Well, I think they were supposed to imply that he was, like, experimented on, so he grew so much.
I guess, but nobody else was.
But I think we didn't know when.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, like a year and a half passed, right? I think it makes enough sense for him to have had a growth spurt.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I thought it was like, I mean, I don't remember if we like saw the other people or if they grew because of the drugs too. I don't know. But I mean, I think that's also one of those things where the art is kind of inconsistent. So you're like, is he really tall or is this just the art
Yeah.
looking funky?
Right.
The art is a little interesting in the manga where sometimes I would never say it's bad. It's definitely not bad art.
No, I love the
but
aesthetic. I think
it's a little inconsistent sometimes with like
Yeah.
something just like you can't really just use the art to like scale things
Yeah.
necessarily, but
the scaling
but
is weird.
what they do though, some of their big moments in the manga look fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say overall the art is really good and it has a very specific aesthetic. It's got that kind of like dark fairy tale look, which I think plays into the overall atmosphere really well. But it's
Oh my god.
definitely not the
When
most sketchy. I mean, it definitely is a bit
Yeah.
sketchy at times. So like
That freaking in chapter 1 when you turn the page and it's just the big ass demon
Yeah.
while Emma
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
Norman are hiding under the truck. It's just like holy shit, this is so good.
It's still my favorite first
Um,
chapter in manga.
Yeah, it's definitely really up there for me as well.
Yeah. It can be in the conversation even if it's not your top one.
Yeah, I don't know what would be my top one, but definitely that's up there for sure.
Yeah.
Another really intense moment with great art is, as much as I wasn't a huge fan of the scene in general, the fight with the queen,
Mm-hmm.
when she resurrects in her nasty ass amalgamation of all the bodies, Dorohedoro bullshit
you
form.
said that word for word when you sent it to me. You sent me the screenshot and you're like, what is this Dorohedoro bullshit?
That looked awesome.
I don't remember the exact context of what happened with this panel, but there's the one panel where the background just goes pure black
Yeah.
Yeah.
when they're fighting the queen. Is that the same thing?
It might have.
I was thinking of the one where
I know what you're
she
thinking of.
transforms into the huge pile of bodies with the faces of all of the
Yeah.
humans that have ever been consumed.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the faceless body walks out of the hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, that's definitely straight out of the Dorohedoro manga.
I just remember there was one shot of, I think it was, I want to kind of say maybe it was her eye got shot and the background just turns pure black, only for
I
another
remember
one
that too.
somewhere else to open up, and it's just oh shit,
Yeah.
she's not dead.
Right.
Yeah, it has some fantastic moments.
Yeah. I think some of the, and as my go-to, I can be your demon or your angel Norman panel. I get meme the shit out of that. But yeah, I think the art is really cool. And at the very least, it definitely has its own style that you won't see anywhere else. So I think makes it worth checking out. And for anyone who finds the anime designs really weird, they work better in the manga. So there's at least that.
Another example of the art being really good in a really intense moment. And in the scene that I think was the biggest downgrade from the manga to the anime is when the bunker is attacked.
Yeah.
The shot of I think Andrew was his name, the leader of the mercenary squad.
Yeah, that dude.
After he gets blown the fuck up, but
Oh,
then
yo.
captures the kids and is holding them at gunpoint with his fucking two-face ass,
Yeah.
half burnt off face and shit.
Yeah, that was wild.
That was a sick panel. And a really, really good scene.
I also remember, I love this is I do our, hey, throwback to these cool manga panels that we like. That reminds me of the cool, almost fish islands in Goldie Ponds, where they're in that hallway and it's they're entering and shooting and then Lewis is on the other end. It's this really weird panel, but it looks super cool. I'm going to look it up and share, but it's just a lot of really creative art decisions that I think it's at its peak makes it a top tier manga experience.
Right.
If you don't want to read this for whatever reason, there is another manga. There's a one shot from the same duo.
Ooh.
That was very good. I'm trying to find it in my. It's called Spirit Photographer Saburo Kono. It's a weird supernatural mystery. It's just like a little one shot, and it's like a cool horror manga. It's pretty cool, and it looks very good.
Ooh, I'll check it out.
I will link the mal for you here, but yeah, if you could find like their I don't know, just like go to a roundabout way to get to that if you wanted to would be to go to the Promised Neverland mal and then click on the author from there, because it's the same writer and artist.
Yeah.
Cool.
That, and you can even tell just from the cover for this, it looks really cool. So.
Yeah, like you can tell, you can look at that and just go,
that's
that's
a great,
that's the
thumbnail.
Promised Neverland artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope to see more of them in the future. I think they do have a really good like dynamic between
I
them.
believe they have another one shot coming out pretty soon.
Ooh, that's cool. I'm glad that they get along, especially after the Act Age fiasco kind of situation. But you know, that's a duo that did not get along, and it turned out for good reason. This seems to be a duo that does get along, and hopefully will, you know, maybe they'll be able to build off of the Promised Neverland and make something even better in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Who knows? But
I'm like most manga that I enjoy. I'm always keeping an eye out for the next work of that from that person or that group.
that's cool.
I'm always like, oh, I thought you did a great job with this. Hyped to see what comes next, because I liked it, and more from the same creators is usually equal quality. I feel like, or similar quality.
Yeah, you kind of know what you're getting into, unless they're trying to do like a huge departure. But
Yeah.
I guess that's a good way of semi-transitioning, unless you guys wanted to comment anything else about the manga. Just like how we feel about the Promised Neverland as a whole.
Yeah. Go ahead, Smurf.
I was gonna say I still have really strong feelings about Promised Neverland. I still really love it. I still look back fondly on my memories of binging to catch up to the manga, which was I know it was before the anime started. I think I binged to catch up, like during Goldie Pond or right after Goldie Pond or something. So I caught up around there, like around chapter 90 or something, and then following it weekly, seeing everyone hating on it, but I still was like, no, this is still good. Like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah.
It could be worse. Go watch Black Clover for 3.5 years, and then come back. You'll see the problems. You'll see why this is still good. But yeah, no, it's still in my favorites on Mal, both manga and anime. Not season 2, but season 1. And yeah, I still think it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it. Sinrus, you have the most unique takes on it because you've experienced it in a unique way, so I'm interested to see
Yeah.
how your journey ended up.
Well, it was funny. There are a lot of weird moments in the course of reading it, because I, like, binged this.
Oh, cool.
I think I read it faster than I've ever read any manga. I read, like, the whole thing in maybe, like, 4 or 5 days.
Wow, that's awesome.
But so many weird things, like when they find like the temple that has like the key to get past the 7 walls and all that, like that felt like a big moment to me reading the manga, because at that point I'd already seen in the anime they like all relocated to that temple, which never actually happens. So there are all sorts of like strange little things like that where
You're like, oh, it's this
I was
from
trying
the
to
anime.
figure out
Yeah.
like how the pieces fit together, and sometimes they just literally didn't at all. So I definitely had a weird experience with it, but I liked it a lot. I think that, you know, I've already explained my issues with the ending, but I think that those were kind of unavoidable just with how the series was constructed from the very beginning. And I like everything up to the resolution well enough that I overall think of it very fondly.
That's a good way
Nice.
of putting it. So it's like gripes about the resolution, but overall good series.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, because I noticed you gave it an 8, and I was like, I think that's what
I did.
Sinrus gave Steel Ball Run. So I'm like, that's kind of high praise.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. So I was like, that's pretty high praise because they don't really.
I do think Steel Ball Run is a little bit better.
I would
but-
hope. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I would hope so. Yeah, but I mean, I think I'm in a similar boat. I think me and Smurf we were the weekly defenders of it is not that bad. You guys are just mean. And then I think I was not able to defend them bringing Lewis back, and that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back of like, this is just bullshit. I can't defend this. But I do think I took like a huge gap in between then and like the last couple chapters, so I thought it would be...
you stopped reading it for a while.
Yeah.
And you were just only
You saw
hearing...
Lewis walk up on stage and you're like, I'm done.
And you were just like, you were hearing how terrible it was. And I remember you just being like you were just kind of taking people's, what they were saying as kind of correct. You're just like, oh yeah, it fell apart. But... And I was like, no, shut, read it, please.
I think I was like, actually,
I
I wasn't putting it off because everyone was like, it was bad, because I was like, you guys have been saying it's bad for like 50 chapters, and I've been behind it. I think I just like randomly procrastinated on it. Like, I'm in the middle of Vinland Saga, and like, but I put it off for months for no reason. I'm just like, actually...
Oh yeah, I hear that gets awful. I mean, we'll see if it actually
that one's
does. But...
I don't even know about that. I'm still in the good arc.
Yeah.
I'm in the farmland arc, which is...
all I hear, I don't know anything about it beyond the anime. I just hear that it gets terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that too.
And I just go, does it really though?
Yeah.
Or are people just overreacting like always?
Yeah, because of like the
Yeah.
Promised Neverland situation, I feel like I can't really trust people when they're like, oh, it's so terrible. Because I'm like, y'all like really freak out over nothing. It's just so like, it's either great or it's terrible. There's no in between.
That's how I'm feeling with the Attack on Titan manga now.
Yeah, that's pretty much how people are acting.
I was just about to bring that up. Like all I hear, I've seen people on Reddit saying like, oh, I'm going to watch Attack on Titan, and someone just going, don't even bother, the ending ruins the whole thing. And I go, it can't be that bad. Like, it literally cannot be that bad of an ending.
Okay, I will...
Yeah. Well, not to digress too far, but I've been very interested because I feel the same way about Attack on Titan that I did about Promised Neverland, in that like the problems that the series and its world have presented are like so insurmountable that I can't understand a way that they could have a satisfying ending.
And that's something I definitely
I'm
think
not saying
is
that
true.
the ending is going to be great, because I'm having my issues with the anime Attack on Titan as well. I just feel like even if it's like not that great of an ending, like it can't be like this is like a 1 out of 10, and like it can't be that bad of an ending. There's no way.
I think it's like the case of like I agree with what you said, Sinrus, that the problems that they present are so insurmountable that it's like, how are they going to come up with an answer to this problem? And I think Promised Neverland's problem was a bit less complicated than Attack on Titans, but I actually did this like mini tier list in my head because I think I've run the gauntlet in disappointing endings of things that were a favorite, from like Game of Thrones, Beastars, Promised Neverland, and now Attack on Titan. I would say it is a disappointing ending, but I don't think it is a series-ruining ending. So I have the tier. The least offensive ending to me is the Promised Neverland, then Attack on Titan, then Beastars, and then like 10 tiers later in hell, you got Game of Thrones. So like, no one should... so like, nothing is Game of Thrones tier show ruining ending, and I think that applies to Attack on Titan too. Like, I think it's a bit disappointing. But I don't know if you heard this, but they Isayama is coming out with 8 extra pages in the volume version of it. So that...
Oh, really? To try to like patch things
well,
up?
It's not even...
This is the Mass Effect Extended Edition.
They did
extended
that.
Cut.
Well, they did that with Haikyuu in certain places too. So like, it's not an uncommon thing of like they can only fit so much in a certain magazine, and then later they come out with more. But I think Attack on Titan was always going to be a like... It was either 100 or 0 for people, and unfortunately, they're like, well, a lot of people have stupid...
That's just kind of... It's kind of the world we live in with manga, where they need to have... you want to start big. Boom, here's this huge thing, and then you get really ambitious, and it's like, now what do we do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just the way like the industry works, you've got to like hit early in order to get serialized, and then you've got to figure out where to go from there.
I remember hearing that Promised Neverland, when they pitched it to Jump, they had Gracefield fully written out. That was done. And it was like, okay, here's our arc. We got this. And Jump was like, absolutely. Then they get to the end of Gracefield, and it's like, all right, time to make everything up as we go.
Yeah.
I totally believe that.
Yeah, and that's something we've seen from, like, Bakuman makes that so, like, not that Bakuman is literally what happens, but, like, our brief knowledge with, the insight from Bakuman knowing how, like, it takes to get serialized in Weekly Shonen Jump, I could totally believe that.
Yeah, and I have also heard much less, I don't want to say much less trustworthy. That sounds like who I'm hearing it from shouldn't be
Reputable,
believed.
perhaps?
Reputable. Just like hearsay here and there is that a lot of things in the Neverland manga were maybe some editor influence. Mm-hmm. That maybe the writer didn't necessarily... I've heard that Goldie Pond wasn't really something that the author wanted to do. Now, I don't know how trustworthy that is, because, again, it's just like kind of a random Reddit comment that I read. But I have heard, like... And I could see that, maybe if that was true, why when they wrote the anime, they'd go, all right, let's get rid of this. Let's just put in the things that I had in my original vision. And then it's kind of like, well, now you maybe can see where editor influence is very important.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the editor giveth, and sometimes they take away, because we know that. What is it like?
It's like whenever people bring up editor influence, it's always about how like they're stomping over the creator's artistic vision, but the editors exist for a reason.
Right.
You know, creators need people to rein them in sometimes.
Yeah, like in DBZ, I think the editor was responsible for like Android 19 or something, or like they were responsible, or I think the guy who, I forget his name, Toriyama, he based
Akira Toriyama. Yeah.
He based Frieza on his editor, who was like terrorizing him.
I think one of the famous examples is that in like Quentin Tarantino's original vision for Pulp Fiction, the date scene between Vincent Vega and Mrs. Wallace was going to be like an hour long.
Oh wow, yeah.
Because he wanted to like make it like the full like bad awkward date experience.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And his editor was like, "You are fucking insane."
Yeah, like we're cutting this down.
I love hearing these kind of editor, like how they talk with, like, you know, sometimes maybe in hindsight you look at what the editor's saying and you go, you're an idiot. Like when Shonen Jump rejected Attack on Titan, you could look at them and go, wow, you're fucking stupid. What's wrong with you? But at the same time, they were looking at Attack on Titan going, this doesn't really fit what Jump does. Like, this is really bloody and kind of dark. We don't really want this.
If Attack on Titan was in Jump, it might have faced a lot more like it would just be a completely different story. So I mean, you know.
Well, and now Modern Jump has Chainsaw Man in it, so I think all the rules are out the window.
I don't know.
But...
I don't understand how Chainsaw Man exists.
Maybe
in
they
Shonen
did.
Jump.
Maybe they learned from Attack on Titan. They were like, okay, Attack on Titan exists, and this is popular. Let's let this dude with Chainsaw Man do whatever the fuck he wants. And then he's like, really? You mean that? And then he did. So, like, good on him.
and now they go, all right, you're done. We're gonna put you on the digital Jump Plus, where we don't have to worry about this at all.
I wonder if they're gonna move him because, like, I don't know. I mean, like, they might as well. They don't have anything else going on. Just let it be Chainsaw Man season.
Well, that's what they're going to do. He's going to have to... He's not going to be in Shonen Jump anymore. He's going to be in Jump Plus, which is online only.
Okay. And is that technically seinen?
And that's where they're allowed to put all the gore and titties.
Is that?
No. But Jump Plus is a bi-weekly
that's where
digital publication.
Is that where Spy...
That's where Spy Family is. That's where Kaiju... Or it's not all bi-weekly, because like Kaiju number 8 is there. And that has a really, really weird release schedule where I don't know how a brand new mangaka can negotiate this kind of work schedule where they do 3 chapters and take a week off, and 3 chapters, take a week off,
That's
3 chapters,
dope.
take a week off.
It's pretty dope. Sign me
and
up.
the art I think benefits from it. So maybe they're using it as kind of like a testing ground of like, this works.
I mean,
People
anything that's more humane for the mangaka.
And Kaiju number 8 is selling like hotcakes, so they're probably like, hey, you know, it's working and we're getting a lot of money.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm down if they're finding new ways to be more humane towards mangaka. I'm down because I do think that some of the issues we've come across with Promised Neverland was because it's, you know, weekly series, multiple years going.
Yeah, you don't have much time to think something out. You really have like, all right, we have 3 days to come up with the next the plot
next
for the next few chapters. You know, well, you can't just do it chapter by chapter. You really have to plan out several chapters ahead of time, and then tie them all together. It makes like what Oda is doing in One Piece kind of insane, where.
That dude's had like 10 years to figure out his plot.
You'll see like an interview with him, and you'll see his desk, and he'll have notebooks on his desk that you'll see the names of them. It's like 5 arcs in the future of just like notes, like notebooks just full of like, this is what's going to happen in 3 years. We're going to get to the 3rd notebook here or something. It's like, that's absurd.
And that's so tough with something that's such a like narrative-driven series like Promised Neverland, where it's like the plot is the forefront. You got to get that in a line. So like it's tough to do that over so many years where you don't really get breaks and you're just doing it week by week. So I mean,
yeah, and you can kind of feel that. I think in the middle, there's a bit of a stretch where it's just like not much of a continuous plot. It's just like people going on field trips, and it's like there'll be a few chapters where they go to this place and come back, and then a few chapters where they go to that place and come back.
Yep.
And that kind of feels to me, just from like my very limited experience, just as like running a D&D game and like not really sure what to do next, and just coming up with like, okay, I can like there's a session in 2 days and I don't know what's going to happen yet. I'll just like come up with this thing that we can get out of the way real quick and then like buy some time. So I very much feel that with like, okay, we're going to send 3 of the characters to go like find the dragon ruins. And then they get there and they're like, okay, I did that. And then everyone goes home.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's interesting looking at the landscape. I think it left its mark on the industry. I wanted it to kind of be viewed as this generation's Death Note, but I do not think it will go down with the same, I don't think it'll be that iconic or as well remembered, but
No.
which is sad, but whatever. So I had fun with it too. I think I will always feel very fondly for the Promised Neverland because it is probably responsible for me feeling attached to manga as a medium in a way that I hadn't before. So I think it's an important series for me.
It was kind of my springboard into following Jump stuff as well, for the most part. Like I had like my favorites. Like I read Attack on Titan, I read JoJo, I read Boku no Hero, I read Hunter x Hunter when chapters existed.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I just read my favorites. And then you and Jack were like so hyped about Promised Neverland, and I was like, I'm just gonna see what this is. And I loved it. And then I would jump over to like, oh, well, Dr. Stone is kind of starting. Let me jump into that. Let's see what that's like. And now I'm picking up a lot of Jump stuff like as they start. I'm reading a lot of things from chapter 1 weekly. And so Neverland was definitely my springboard into really, really getting into Shonen Jump manga.
Yeah, I remember when you started
I'm very grateful for. I'm very grateful for it because I have a great time experiencing all these manga, and especially a lot of ones that are never going to be made into anime, like stuff that gets canceled 30 chapters in. Phantom Seer got canceled. I loved that. That was fantastic, and I never would have experienced it if I hadn't jumped into manga. So
yeah,
thanks, Promised Neverland. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you. I think it's kind of interesting. I think it is kind of one of those maybe it's going to be the entry level series that we look back on fondly but don't hold in as high regard as other series. So I guess it's a kind of growing up point for us, but I do think it's something I'll remember fondly.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up, don't let the stupid stuff at the end of the series distract you from the stupid fact that Ray is so goddamn smart he remembers being a fetus.
I hate that so much. Oh my god. I complained about that in Neverweekly, but when I read that in the manga, I went, wow, that's really stupid. Actually, let me see if that's a real thing. Go to Wikipedia. Okay, it's not. This is really stupid. I hate this.
Yeah. It was like so ridiculous that you had to be sure it wasn't real.
Yeah, because you're
I was like, let me just make sure. Like, is this like a 1 in a million thing? Maybe I could be like, okay, it's plausible. No, okay, it's not a real thing. This sucks. I hate it.
Yeah, I think that's
that's another one of the bonus chapters from Neverland. By the way, there is a
Ray in the
chapter
fetus.
where seriously? That's awesome.
Not in the fetus, but when he's like 5 and confronts Isabella about it, and they make their deal.
Yeah.
There's a chapter about that as well.
Do you guys have a favorite character by the end of this, or is it just kind of
Yuchika?
Oh, okay.
It's Yugo for me.
Okay, I'm gonna still stick with Norman, even though I feel a bit underwhelmed by his arc. I'm still gonna stay strong, but Yugo's a great pick. Rip him. Musica's a great pick. Not rip her.
Yuchika fits my. I just picked the irrelevant side characters that disappear for 100 chapters, and they're my favorite.
And in this case, it paid off for you because she came back to be important at the end.
Yeah, that's when she dropped from Smurfs list because he's like, "No, wait, you have a role now. I can't handle that." My
new favorite character is the feral wolf girl.
That was a weird one. I mean,
Not
she was
gonna lie,
cool.
I
though,
actually liked her too.
I liked her quite a bit. I was
I
really
liked her.
disappointed she wasn't in the anime.
Yeah, I said that because I knew that was a very Smurfcore character.
Smurfcore. Yeah.
She is good though. I like her
Yeah, she was
a lot.
cool. She had a cool design. Yeah.
She's not Smurf enough because I don't know her name.
Yeah.
She's no Masako Sakai from Hibike, who doesn't have a voice actress because
I
she has
saw
no
her
lines
in
of
your
dialogue.
favorites, and I was like, "Is that fucking Hibike girl who's so irrelevant?" And I was like, "He actually
Yes.
did it. The madman added her to his Mal."
My last spot on my Mal character favorites is kind of just a meme spot right now.
Yeah.
Hey, don't feel too bad about that, Smurf. My favorite character from Neverland doesn't have a voice actor either.
That's
Oh,
true.
that's so sad.
Well, I don't know. Is there a
hate
CM? Is there a CM that he talks in? Who knows?
No, it's
Yeah.
so bad. I just went to Lewis's page, and it just shows anime no appearance and manga manga Promised Neverland, and it's like, I hate this image so much. Oh my god, I hate that. I hate that for us.
Yeah, the like final death scenes of Yugo and Lucas like fighting the SWAT team
Yeah.
is probably my favorite bunch of chapters in the whole series.
Yeah, that was really
Yes.
emotional and powerful. As some would say, not me. He got killed before the series went downhill, so rip to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well. I guess we said a lot. I think we had a fun discussion. I'm sorry if I talked too much and narrated the lore of the Promised Neverweekly too much, but if you guys are still interested, want to hear podcast pre-pandemic where we had hope for the future, go check that out. I appreciate you guys coming on. I'm sorry I took so long to finish this, but thank you guys for talking
That's
with me
okay.
about it. I think this was a cool way to put to bed the Promised Neverland. I think it deserved better, and hopefully we could, pay some respects as we forget about it in the future. At least the season 2,
Well, I
agree.
not the manga.
I like that we could have a discussion about it without just saying it sucks, it's bad, it's terrible, 1 out of 10. We can be like, this has a lot of good stuff in it. It's not just they didn't just
I
ruin
think we
everything.
gave it props where they were due.
Yeah,
Exactly.
As we said, a lot of times people want to make it out as it's all an extreme. Like people want to say it's either a 10 or a 1.
Yep.
Realistically, it's somewhere in between a 9 and a 2.
It's actually a 2.
I did give it a 2. I did give season 2 a 2. Yeah. So I mean, there it is.
But I definitely didn't really have a place. I'm thankful for you inviting me onto this, so I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
I had been feeling a little annoyed at a lot of the discourse online, and I just I don't feel like I can really say anything about it. But it's just like people just bashing it. It's like, guys, it's not that bad. But I appreciate you inviting me on. I can kind of speak my 2 cents on the matter and say,
Speak your
hey,
truth.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Speak my truth. Keep moving
Speak
forward.
truth to power.
Yeah, I think, and I think that's important too, because a lot of times when people are like, "Oh, it's so bad, it's just bad," no one actually articulates it that much. So even if the
Right.
discourse was just being negative, I wish people would kind of put a bit more effort in articulating it, because I think everyone hears the manga gets bad, but no one actually says why they think it's bad. So
Yeah,
Right.
I went for a solid year only ever hearing it's bad without ever seeing a single person say why.
yeah, exactly. And I was like, okay, but what's bad? And people would just be like, Emma doesn't want to kill
All of it.
demons, and it's
It's
like,
all
what do you
bad.
mean? Yeah. So I'm also just thankful that you picked it up, Sinrus. I'm glad that you picked it up and had a good experience with it.
Yeah, I mean, I had to. I was talking to Smurf after every episode while it was airing, and eventually I was just like, tell me where to pick it up.
Yeah.
This is so painful.
That's actually a question people might have. If you've gotten to the end of this somehow and have not gotten spoiled, thank you. Where should people pick it up if they don't want to watch season 2 but want to see what happens post season 1?
Chapter 37.
Chapter 37. So I will make that a note too. So if people just want to jump right into it, read from chapter 37 and have a good time.
Mhm.
Yeah. But that's it on my end. Sorry, dragging out the ending as if that hasn't happened before. So
Wow, it reminds me of something.
reminds me of something.
Just turned into a brief Shonen Jump podcast, which I'm cool with.
That maybe in
Yeah.
the future. I think that would be fun. That would be some fun homework for us to do. So maybe we'll see that in the future. If you want to hear more of that, let us know. Can follow us on YouTube at We're the Our Anime Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Tokyo Podfathers. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever there are audio podcasts, we are there. And stay tuned because we have a lot more coming in the future. Thanks, guys.